Eric Darling here with Darling Data, and you may have guessed based on various temporal elements that it is Monday, and Monday means it is time for office hours, where I answer 5, as long as I count correctly, user submitted questions to my highly advanced Google Sheets document, and do my best to give good answers, good thoughtful answers to those. You can find the link to ask those questions down in the video description. Well, you're on your way to that link, perhaps to ask a question. You will see all sorts of other mutually beneficial links down there in which you can hire me for consulting, which is a great idea. You can buy my training, which is likewise fantastic idea. You can become a supporting member of the channel. For as few as $4 a month, you can say, good job, Eric. Thank you for spending hundreds of hours a month recording YouTube videos and coming up with content for us. And then, of course, you can ask that office hours question for free. Amazing. Is there no limit to my generosity? Yes. No. Not sure. And of course, if you enjoy this content, if you think that someone else in your life may also enjoy this content, please do like, subscribe, and tell a friend, because that's the nice thing to do, and that is free for all of us. So I will be out in the world. You know, it is February currently. At least, I mean, it's not February when I'm recording this, but it's going to be February by the time you see this. So I don't know. You can maybe guess when I'm recording this based on that. But I'm not leaving the house for a bit. It just snowed like 52 feet here in New York. Looks disgusting already. It is various shades of not white out there in the snow. But as soon as that snow melts, as soon as that snow abates a bit, I will be back out joining the world. Baseball will be in the swing of things. It'll be a marvelous time for all of us. Data 2 Nashville, March 6th and 7th. Data Saturday, Chicago, March 13th and 14th. SQL Day, Poland, May 11th and 13th. Look, I missed the th on Poland. I got to fix that. And of course, Data Saturday, Croatia, June 12th and 13th. At all of these events, I will be teaching my advanced T-SQL pre-con. Because I only have 6.5 hours, roughly, to teach my advanced T-SQL pre-con, and there is much more to say about advanced T-SQL, all attendees will get free access to my Learn T-SQL with Eric course, which encompasses both beginner and advanced material and is far, far longer than the 6.5 hours these training days allow. So if you want to get a tremendous amount of bang for your buck, or whatever currency these other things use, you should come to that and have a great time. I don't know. Maybe we can both learn something from each other. But with that out of the way, we have flipped the calendar unofficially to February here. Still winter. Sucks. I asked ChatGPT to come up with like a good, like, shining-y, like I've been stuck in the house all winter vibe. And, aside from this one up here, which has like some extra fingers, and that one over there that has a backwards axe, I think, like the face in the doorway over here is particularly good. I like that one. So I don't know. I have some time to think about March. I don't know what March is going to be yet. We'll find out when we get there. But anyway, let's answer some questions, right? Let's do that thing that I promised you I would do. We lowered max stop. Like, it took more than one of you? How many people does it take to change max stop? I guess there's a joke in there. How many DBAs does it take to change max? Anyway, to reduce CX weights. All right, that's a reason to do it, I guess. And queries now run slower but look more stable. Is that a net win? Well, of course your queries run slower, you reduce max stop. Let's just theoretically say you reduce max stop from 8 to 4. You now have 4 fewer cores with which to process your queries with. There is some chance that they would get slower by like half, right? So if your query runs in 2 seconds at max stop 8 and you reduce that query to max stop 4, it might run for like 2 seconds instead of 1. What I'm struggling with a little bit here is when you say, look more stable. I don't know what look more stable means. Is this like a tortoise versus the hare situation? Is this slow and steady wins the race? I don't know what more stable means. You're going to have to give me some more information about the stability you speak of, because I have no insight into what more stable means to you. Is it a net win? I don't know. Are slower queries ever a net win? I suppose if you are hitting thread pool weights or, like very, very high CPU percentages constantly, then perhaps it is a net win. Perhaps your server is just a bit less stressed out, worn out, running out of resources. I don't know, but golly and gosh, I don't know if I can call that a net win because I don't know what you're measuring stability with. I don't know what criteria you find these queries to be more stable by. So yada yada yada. Batch mode made our analytical queries much faster, but OLTP queries slowed down. Why does batch mode sometimes hurt mixed workloads? Well, a lot of it, I'll give you the prime thing that I see when batch mode on row store, which I assume is what you're talking about here, because, OLTP, like why else would that be a thing? I'll give you the primary thing that I see is the optimizer decides perhaps that some facet of one of your OLTP-ish queries would benefit from batch mode. It could be an aggregate, but more commonly, it is a join. And most commonly what happens with joins is that SQL Server starts choosing adaptive joins, which aren't a bad thing on the face of them. I rather appreciate SQL Server no longer just YOLOing with a hash join or a loop join, regardless of how many rows actually start showing up. But what it can do is take what is typically a nice, efficient, usually single-threaded nested loops join plan and throw a little bit of a monkey in that wrench by starting the plan off with a batch mode hash join and switching over to a row mode nested loops join if enough rows are not omitted from the outer part of the join. So, and that is primarily what I see happening, is that, what used to be just a very quick, simple navigational query, all of a sudden starts getting weird. And, I'm not saying that you should be scared of batch mode on row store, but there may be certain queries that you might have to intervene with and say, please don't do that. Like the easiest way is just to say option loop join for those. But typically that is what I see. All right. Yeah, we tuned queries heavily. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't believe you. But didn't save much money in Azure. Well, no kidding. An overpriced resort that is. Why doesn't query tuning translate directly into cloud savings? Well, let's think about that for a moment here. You tuned queries heavily, right? And let's say in the course of your heavy query tuning, you reduce CPU from like 80% to like 30%. Typically where one starts to realize cost savings in the cloud is when one reduces the size of their cloud hardware. So if you, let's say, tuned all your queries and made things better in that way, it would have to coincide with some reduction in cloud resources to see money get saved. It kind of reminds me of the question where it's like, I got rid of all this data in my database, but the database file is still huge. What happened? It's like, well, that database doesn't shrink itself, right? That Azure instance doesn't shrink itself. So, what are we going to do here? But anyway, my rates are reasonable, and I'm happy to help you save money in the cloud. Aren't I nice? We run full scan stats nightly, but estimates are still awful. Why does perfect sampling still produce terrible plans? Well, it may be a full scan sample, but let's consider a couple things about statistics, shall we? First is that you no matter how big of a scan you use, whether it's full or not, SQL Server still populates the same 200-step histogram with whatever values it finds during that scan, whether it be sampled or full. It's not like you produce bigger histograms just because you do a full scan of the stats. You might already have a two-step histogram. The full scan stat might describe certain portions of that histogram more accurately, but there might still be a lot of information that is not well captured by that. If that's the case, you might consider filtered indexes or statistics in order to give the optimizer more information about portions of your table data that is not well represented by the histogram. The other thing to consider is that you might be writing your queries in stupid ways. You might be doing all sorts of things that may inhibit SQL Server from accurately guessing cardinality for things. Local variables, table variables, non-stargable predicates, those are some things that immediately sort of spike the ball on that. There's all sorts of other things you might be doing. You might just have terribly complex queries which would benefit from being broken down into smaller chunks. So you cannot rely on statistics updates for everything. They are one part of the picture. There are many other parts of the picture for you to consider. All right. Ooh, I wonder if this is the same person. All right, it sounds pretty similar. All right, let's see what we got here. I don't know why this square is so much bigger. Columnstore fixed our reporting queries, but wrecked inserts. Really? Columnstore wrecked inserts. That's interesting. What architectural trade-offs should we expect when adding Columnstore indexes to hot OLTP tables? So my initial surprise here is because I typically don't see Columnstore doing too terribly with inserts. And the reason for that is that, since you're talking about OLTP, I would assume that you are talking about the OLTP inserts, which are usually a very, very low number of rows. Generally one, but I would say maybe up to 100 or something would be reasonable for an OLTP workload before it starts, getting into different types of different families of queries, like analytical stuff. So I'm a little surprised at that because those inserts typically won't touch the column store itself. Inserts that are too small to qualify for instant compression into the column store just get inserted into the delta store, which is sort of a clustered B-tree row store brain leech on your column store. So I'm a little surprised at that. If you had told me that updates or deletes were having a tougher time because of the column store, that I would believe, because updates with a column store are pretty much you delete the old row and insert the new row, and then the new row gets inserted into the column store, but you still have to decompress the old row and all the other stuff. So a lot of things get, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes with updates. Even deletes usually aren't that beat up by it. You do just sort of use the deleted bitmap thing in there and mark the row as a tombstone row, or a ghost record, or whatever the 1 million different things Microsoft has called it is. So I'm not sure why your inserts were hurt so badly by that. As far as architectural trade-offs go, well, mostly it's the stuff that I just talked about. You get your either reporting style queries or your kitchen sink style queries where, you don't know what the where clause and the select list and the order by is going to be. It's non-clustered column store is marvelous for getting those types of things sorted out. But, as far as architectural trade-offs go, what some people will do, and I am an occasional proponent of, is to sort of, separate your data out a little bit. Have your hot data that might be seeing frequent modifications sit in a normal row store table. And then sort of once something is past the point of, modification, frequent modification, you might move that to sort of an archival thing that is that has a column store index on it. That's probably the most common of them. In extreme cases, some people will even use an in-memory table for the really hot data. is sort of like a shock absorber table. A few of my clients in the online gambling space and in the high demand consumer shopping goods space is spaces. I don't know if that's, I don't know how many that actually spans when I think about it. I think maybe it's just all one space where people buy too much crap. The in-memory OLTP thing is very useful for them. But if you just have like a generically like hot workload for recent data, like the last week or month or something, you could keep that in a row store table. You could move that off in like a big batch to a column store table, and see most of the benefit of having column store for your more historical data, and row store, which has less insert, update, delete overhead for the hot data. It's just sort of up to you to figure out how long something is sort of useful for. For a lot of people, it's not a very long stretch. You place an order for something, like what happens later, like you get like a ship date, right? And then you get like maybe some tracking notifications, so that's not even like in the table itself. And then you get like a delivery date, which probably updates the order or something. But for the most part, most stuff is done within like, I don't know, an hour to days of its lifetime there. Like even things like stock trades, you can only do that once, right? I mean, you can place a whole bunch of trades, but it's not like after you make a trade, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I meant 3, no, 12. And then like the day goes by, and you're like, I meant 15. Right? Like there's a lot of stuff that like it's hot time, right? Its moment in the sun is fairly short. Like even like an Amazon order, which is kind of like what I was just talking through, unless someone like cancels it, but that's going to have to be pretty quick, right? It's not like months later someone's going to be like, I'm still waiting on that. Cancel. Right? It's kind of silly. Anyway, that is the sort of architectural stuff that immediately comes to mind. I don't know more about your situation, so it would be pointless and fruitless to try to think of sillier situations you might be in. So if you want more details, well, my rates are reasonable. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned something. And I will see you in tomorrow's video, where we will do some other SQL Server stuff. All right. Thank you.